I stared at my reflection in the window of my parents' sprawling Victorian home, steeling myself for another Sunday dinner of thinly veiled insults and not-so-subtle comparisons. My 10-year-old Toyota Corolla sat in the driveway, deliberately parked between my brother Mark's Mercedes and my sister Victoria's Range Rover. The car was my cover, just like the modest apartment I kept for family visits, the off-the-rack clothes I wore to these dinners, and the struggling programmer story I'd maintained for the past 6 years. Tonight all of that would change. Finally decided to grace us with your presence? Victoria opened the door, designer dress swishing. Her eyes swept over my simple blazer and slacks with practiced disdain. Still shopping at outlets, I see. If she only knew the simple blazer was a hand-tailored piece that cost more than her monthly mortgage. But that wasn't part of the story. Not yet. Inside, the familiar scene unfolded. Mom arranging flowers that cost more than they should. Dad holding court in his leather armchair, Mark showing off his new Rolex to his wife Jennifer. The perfect picture of upper-middle-class success. Olivia. Mom air-kissed my cheeks. We were just discussing Mark's new promotion. Senior Vice President. And Victoria's interior design business is simply exploding. That's wonderful, I said, taking my usual seat, the one with the wobbly leg they never fixed. Congratulations, Mark. He puffed up like a peacock. Well, some of us know how to climb the corporate ladder. Not everyone can be content with. What is it you do again? Coding in some startup. I hid my smile behind a sip of water. Some startup had just signed the final paperwork an hour ago. In exactly 47 minutes, the news would break. Speaking of careers, Dad interjected, Peterson's firm is still looking for IT support staff. Not much, but better than freelancing. Maybe you could finally afford a decent car. The TV hummed quietly in the background. NBC, Dad's favorite channel for tracking his modest investment portfolio. The same channel that would soon. I'm happy with my car, I said mildly. It gets me where I need to go. Victoria snorted. Yeah, to your shared workspace and rented studio apartment. Honestly, Olivia, when are you going to grow up and get a real job? Not everyone can have Daddy finance their business ventures, Jennifer added, adjusting her tennis bracelet, a gift from Mark, no doubt. Mom emerged from the kitchen with the roast, her Sunday dinner specialty. Now let's not criticize. Olivia is finding her way. At 32? Mark laughed. Come on, Mom. Some people just aren't meant for success. I checked my watch. 39 minutes. Well, I did have some news. I started. Please don't say you're still working on that app thing, Dad interrupted. How much money have you sunk into that pipe dream? The app thing was NextGen Solutions, the company I'd built from my dorm room coding project into a revolutionary AI platform. The company that had just... Actually, I tried again. There have been some developments. Oh God, Victoria groaned. Another Kickstarter? Remember her last one, Mark? What was it, $50 in pledges? The hidden Patek Philippe under my sleeve, a celebratory gift to myself, ticked steadily. 28 minutes. Speaking of money, Mom chirped, desperate to change the subject. Mark and Jennifer just put a deposit down on a vacation home in Aspen. And Victoria's looking at expanding her design firm to the Hamptons. Must be nice, Jennifer said with fake sympathy, watching everyone else succeed while you're still driving that. What year is your Corolla again? 2013, I supplied. It has character. Is that what we're calling poverty now? Mark snickered. Dad muted the TV for dinner, but I could see the financial ticker scrolling across the bottom. Any minute now. You know, Olivia, Mom said, passing the potatoes, there's no shame in asking for help. Your father and I could. Still can't believe you wasted your trust fund on that tech nonsense, Victoria interrupted. At least I invested mine in something practical. The trust fund. Right. The same one I'd used as seed money for NextGen, turning that $50,000 into. Honestly, sis, Mark leaned forward, it's time to face reality. You're not cut out for the business world. Some people are meant to lead, others to follow. Nothing wrong with that. 10 minutes. More wine, dear. Mom offered, clearly trying to soften the blows. No thanks, I replied. I need to keep a clear head for later. Hot date. Victoria smirked. Let me guess, coffee shop barista? Or maybe another entrepreneur, from your coding meetups. 5 minutes. Actually, I have a conference call with some investors, I said truthfully. Investors? Dad scoffed. In what exactly? Pie company. That app thing again? Mark rolled his eyes. Give it up, Olivia. Not everyone can be successful like. The TV suddenly blared to life. Dad had hit the wrong button on the remote while reaching for his wine. Breaking news, the CNBC anchor announced. In a shocking move, tech giant Megacorp has acquired NextGen Solutions for $2.1 billion in cash and stock. The AI startup founded by Olivia. The sound of shattering glass filled the room as Dad's wine glass slipped from his hand. What? Victoria whispered. The deal, the anchor continued, makes NextGen's founder one of the youngest tech billionaires in history. Analysts are calling this the acquisition of the year. My phone exploded with notifications. Emails, texts, calls, 6 years of carefully maintained secrecy shattering in an instant. The room had gone completely silent. 5 pairs of eyes stared at me in disbelief as I calmly reached for my phone. About those developments I wanted to discuss, I said softly. Should we talk about them now? The silence stretched like a rubber band ready to snap. Mom's hand trembled as she set down her fork, the silver clattering against fine china. The TV continued its relentless coverage, each detail making my family flinch. Sources say NextGen's revolutionary AI platform has been secretly powering major tech companies for the past 3 years. Estimated annual revenue of $300 million. Founder Olivia Wilson maintained complete ownership. Turn it off, Victoria whispered, but no one moved. My phone kept buzzing. I glanced at the screen calls from Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg. The carefully constructed walls of my private life were crumbling spectacularly. This is a joke, right? Mark finally managed, his face ashen. Some kind of elaborate prank. I pulled out my laptop, not the old model they were used to seeing but my actual work computer. Would you like to see the acquisition papers? But your apartment, Mom stammered. That terrible car. Covers, I said simply, opening files that showed my real estate holdings. Just like the shared workspace you mock, I actually own the entire building. That struggling programmer story was convenient. It let me see who people really were. Dad found his voice, anger mixing with confusion. You deceived us. Your own family. Did I? I turned to face him. Or did you deceive yourselves? Too busy assuming I was a failure to notice what I was building. Victoria jumped up, her chair scraping against the hardwood. All those times you couldn't afford to join us for vacations. I was usually in Silicon Valley meeting with investors. Or Tokyo, setting up our Asian headquarters. Or London, where I own a townhouse in Mayfair. I smiled. That coding meetup, last Christmas? I was closing a $100 million funding round. But why? Jennifer demanded. Why live like someone you could look down on? I finished for her. Because money reveals character. Both having it and thinking someone doesn't. My phone rang again, my actual assistant this time. Yes, Maria? Ms. Wilson, Megacorp CEO, is ready for the press conference. And the NYSE wants to know about the bell-ringing ceremony tomorrow. Schedule it, I replied. And have the car brought around. The real one. The Bentley or the Aston Martin? I looked at Mark, who was still obsessively checking his Rolex. The Bentley. Mom started crying softly. All these years, we treated you like a disappointment? I supplied. Cautionary tale. The family failure. Dad stood up, straightening his shoulders. Now see here, young lady. Just because you've come into some money doesn't mean. Some money. I pulled up my real portfolio on my laptop. Would you like to see the numbers, Dad? The properties, the investments, the offshore accounts. Should we compare net worth? He fell back into his chair. Through the dining room window, I could see my driver pulling up in the Bentley, a far cry from the Toyota parked next to it. 6 years, I continued, closing my laptop. 6 years of watching you finance Victoria's failed business ventures while mocking my pipe dreams. 6 years of enduring Mark's condescending career advice while I was building a billion-dollar company. 6 years of Mom's pitying looks and Dad's disappointed lectures. We were trying to help, Mom protested weakly. No, you were trying to force me into your definition of success. Designer clothes, luxury cars, country club memberships, all funded by Dad's money or corporate jobs. Victoria wiped her mascara-streaked cheeks. So this was all some sort of revenge? Making us look foolish? No, I said softly. This was a lesson. About judgment, about assumptions, and about what really matters in life. My phone buzzed again, Maria reminding me about the press conference. Now if you'll excuse me, I stood up, smoothing my simple blazer. I have a company to take public. Wait, Mark called as I reached the door. All those times you asked for investment advice. I was studying you, I confirmed. Learning exactly what not to do with money. How not to let wealth define character. The Bentley's engine purred outside. Through the window I could see the neighbors gathering, pointing at the car, probably wondering about the commotion. One last thing, I turned back. That trust fund you all criticized me for wasting? I invested it in Amazon and Tesla back in 2016. Just that initial $50,000 is worth about $8 million now. But you were all too busy laughing at my tech nonsense to notice. Dad's face went from red to purple. 8 million. Amazing what happens when you actually understand technology and market trends instead of just bragging about your portfolio at dinner parties. I checked my watch. The press conference starts in an hour. Would you like to watch it here, or should I have Maria send you the highlights? The next morning I stood in front of the New York Stock Exchange surrounded by cameras and reporters. The simple blazer was gone, replaced by a Chanel suit that cost more than Victoria's monthly sales. My family watched from the crowd, Mom still shell-shocked, Dad attempting to look proud as if he'd supported me all along, Mark studying my every move like he was trying to decode a puzzle, and Victoria looked like her entire worldview had shattered. Ms. Wilson, a reporter called out, how does it feel to be the youngest female tech billionaire? I smiled, thinking of all the family dinners where they'd question my worth. Success isn't about age or gender. It's about vision and perseverance. Your family must be very proud, another suggested. I caught Dad trying to edge closer to the cameras. Actually, I built NextGen without family support. Sometimes the best motivation comes from people telling you what you can't do. The questions continued as I rang the opening bell. NextGen stock opened at $150, soared to $245 by noon. My phone showed notifications of congratulations from real tech leaders, people who'd known my secret all along, who'd respected my desire for privacy while building something revolutionary. During a break in the interviews, Victoria approached hesitantly. That apartment you live in is the smallest of the 6 properties I own in the city, I finished. The building itself is part of my real estate portfolio. And all those times you borrowed money for coding equipment. I was actually buying competitors. Small tech firms with promising AI patents. I adjusted my Cartier watch. No need to hide it anymore. That $2,000 I borrowed last year? I used it to test you. See if you'd lord it over me. You did, by the way. Mentioned it at every family dinner for 3 months. She flinched. Olivia, Save it, I cut her off. The time for apologies was during the 6 years you treated me like a failure, not now that you know I'm worth billions. Mark tried next, sliding into the conversation with his sales director smile. Sis, about those investment opportunities one mentioned. You mean the ones you said I was too stupid to understand? I checked my phone. NextGen stock now at $268. I had my team analyze them. Would you like to know why they all failed? He stepped back, facade cracking. Mom and Dad stayed on the periphery watching their perfectly ordered world realign. The daughter they'd dismissed as a disappointment was now worth more than their entire social circle combined. Ms. Wilson, Maria appeared with my tablet. The interviews are scheduled until 3 p.m., then you have the board meeting at 4. Also, Time magazine wants you for next month's cover. Thank you, Maria. And the other matter. He handed me a folder. The audit of your family's finances as requested. Everything from the last 10 years, investments, debts, hidden accounts. Dad's face went pale. You investigated us? Knowledge is power, I replied, scanning the documents. Like knowing that Victoria's design firm is 3 months from bankruptcy. Or that Mark's been falsifying his sales reports. Or that your investment portfolio isn't quite as impressive as you claim at country club dinners. You had no right. Dad started. I had every right. You spent years criticizing my choices while hiding your own financial troubles. The country club membership you can barely afford, the mortgages you can't pay, the credit cards you've maxed out trying to maintain appearances. Mom stepped forward, tears threatening her perfect makeup. We only wanted what was best for you. No, you wanted me to fit your image of success. Designer labels, expensive cars, a corporate job, all funded by debt and appearances. I closed the folder. I chose to build real wealth instead of looking wealthy. And now? Victoria asked quietly. Are you going to destroy us? Release those audits. I studied my sister, really looked at her for the first time in years. Behind the designer dress and perfect makeup I saw fear. The same fear that had driven her to mock my choices, to prove her worth through spending and status. Actually, I said, I'm going to offer you a choice. Maria handed me another folder. Option 1. Continue as you are, maintaining appearances until it all collapses. Option 2. Let me help you build something real. Help us. Mark scoffed, but I could see the desperation in his eyes. NextGen is expanding. We need people in various positions, starting at entry level of course. Real work, not just titles and corner offices. I handed each of them a document. Complete transparency about your finances, commitment to actually learning the business, and most importantly, no more pretenses. Entry level? Victoria whispered, staring at the paper. But I own my company. A company that's about to fail, I reminded her. Sometimes success means starting over. I would know, you all watched me do it for 6 years. Dad stepped forward, his usual confidence gone. And if we refuse? Then nothing changes. You continue living beyond your means, hiding financial troubles, judging others based on appearances. But now you'll do it knowing that the daughter you dismissed as a failure could buy your entire social circle without noticing the expense. My phone buzzed, NextGen stock closing at $275, making my net worth well over $3 billion. You have 24 hours to decide, I said, gathering my things. Maria will show you out. Wait, Mom called. All those Sunday dinners listening to us, it must have been horrible. I turned back one last time. Actually, it was educational. I learned that true wealth isn't about what you own or what you wear. It's about what you build, what you learn, and most importantly, how you treat people when you think they have nothing to offer you. The cameras flashed as I walked away, capturing the moment for tomorrow's papers. Behind me, I could hear Victoria crying softly, Mark arguing with Jennifer, Dad trying to maintain control of a situation long past controlling. But I didn't look back. 6 years of hiding my success had taught me everything I needed to know about them. Now it was their turn to learn about real value, real work, and the true cost of judging someone by their cover. My Bentley waited at the curb, but I walked past it to my old Toyota. One last lesson for my family. True confidence doesn't need to be displayed. As I drove away, Maria sent me their responses. All 4 had signed the agreements. Tomorrow they'd start at the bottom of my company, learning what I'd known all along. Success isn't about looking rich, it's about building something meaningful. And sometimes the best revenge isn't showing off your wealth. It's making others earn their own.
I hadn't stepped foot in that office since Grandpa Merrick's health began to decline, and even now I only came because he made me promise. The conference room smelled like lemon oil and old paper, the kind of scent that clung to wood and secrets. My mother adjusted her pearl necklace with a perfectly manicured hand. My father sat stiffly, arms crossed, like he was bracing for battle. And Callia, ever the curated darling, wore a cream blouse too pristine for grief and a half-smile like she'd already won. Mr. Halpern, Grandpa's lawyer for over 3 decades, cleared his throat and opened the folder with slow, deliberate movements. We are gathered to honor the final wishes of Merrick Wynne. His voice didn't waver, not even as he looked directly at me before reading the allocations aloud. To Callia Wynne, he began the Jackson Hole cabin and the vintage 1959 Gibson guitar. Callia blinked, clearly expecting more. To Everett and Lisette Wynne, his voice continued the heirloom grandfather clock's select vinyl records and a $10,000 charitable gift made in their name. My mother made a noise between a scoff and a gag. That can't be right. Mr. Halpern didn't flinch. He turned the next page. To Serafina Wynne, my granddaughter, my confidant, he leaves his entire financial estate totaling $38,246,000. Silence. Then, what my father barked. Callia's jaw twitched. My mother stood up, face flushed. She abandoned us. She doesn't deserve, Mr. Halpern continued without lifting his eyes. This will was signed, notarized, and filed by Merrick Wynne personally 3 months prior to his death. They didn't hear the rest. My father lunged across the table, snatched the check Mr. Halpern had just handed me, and held it up like it was counterfeit. You think this buys you back in? Before I could respond, he lit a match. The check curled and blackened as the fire danced along the edge. My mother ripped the envelope I'd held, tearing it until Grandpa's handwriting dissolved into shreds. This is what happens when you betray your family, she hissed. I didn't move. I didn't beg. I just smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes but keeps you steady. Because what they burned wasn't what they thought, and what they never saw was the envelope still tucked inside my coat. The last real conversation I had with my father ended with him saying, "If you walk out that door, you don't walk back in." I was 19. I had just turned down a full ride to his alma mater's business program and enrolled instead in a small liberal arts college upstate to study visual design. He called it a hobby with delusions. My mother didn't argue. She just stood behind him with her lips pressed so tight they nearly disappeared. 3 weeks later, I came home for Thanksgiving and found my bedroom stripped bare. The desk, the bed, even the bookshelf with the notes Grandpa used to leave between the pages gone. In their place were 2 gray armchairs, a faux orchid, and a framed print of a lighthouse I'd never seen before. The door plate had been changed from Serafina to Guest Room A. Callia passed me in the hallway and laughed. "Don't be so dramatic. It's not like you were using it." They didn't cut me off all at once. At first it was small things, missed birthday cards, unanswered calls. Then the rent check from my parents didn't show up. When I called to ask, my mother sighed and said, "Actions have consequences, Sarah. You wanted independence. Now you have it. I would have lost the apartment if Grandpa hadn't stepped in." He wired the exact amount 2 days later, no questions asked. After that, the money came in a quiet rhythm. Not too much, never flashy. Just enough to keep the lights on and the heat running. With it came letters in his shaky, elegant script. He never criticized me for leaving. He never asked me to come back. But in every line, there was something stronger than either he saw me. The last one I ever received arrived 3 weeks before he passed. It said only survival isn't weakness. It's the first proof of strength. I tucked that letter into my wallet and carried it through every job rejection, every silent holiday, every evening spent pretending I didn't care. I carried it still, even as the ashes of the fake check cooled on the table in front of me, and my hand slipped into my coat to touch the real envelope waiting there. The first thing I did when I got home was lock the door behind me and slip off my heels. My legs were trembling, but not from fear, more like exhaustion held in place too long. I laid my coat on the kitchen chair and pulled out the envelope Grandpa had given me a month before he died. He'd handed it over in a quiet booth at Hillstone Diner, wrapped in a cloth napkin like he was giving me a relic. "Don't open it," he said, "unless they burn it." And they had. I broke the wax seal and unfolded the contents slowly. A single check almost identical to the one that had turned to ash in front of me just hours earlier. The same number, same signature. But this one was marked in tiny red letters, "Non-negotiable copy." My fingers didn't tremble. I turned the check over and found a small USB drive taped to the back, along with a handwritten note in Grandpa's blocky script. "Let them burn it, then open the real file." I plugged it in. There was no loading screen, no password prompt, just a single folder labeled Inheritance, and inside it a PDF copy of a trust transfer form. It was signed, witnessed, and filed through a firm I didn't recognize. The account number ended in digits I'd memorized as a child, his birthday backwards. The funds were real. The transfer had already happened. Weeks ago. The check they torched wasn't just a decoy. It was bait. I leaned back in my chair, the silence in my apartment thick as velvet. This wasn't about them anymore. It hadn't been for a while. Grandpa hadn't just trusted me, he'd planned for their reaction step by step. And now, so would I. The next morning, I tried to check my bank balance, part habit, part reassurance. The screen blinked once, then again, before an error message appeared. Account not found. I tried another card. Declined. I refreshed the login screen and typed everything slower, as if being precise could fix the glitch. Still nothing. At first, I told myself it was a security lock, maybe a fraud flag from yesterday's events. But when I called the bank, the man on the other end of the line sounded hesitant. "I'm sorry, Miss Wynne," he said, tapping at keys I couldn't see. "Our system has your account marked inactive. Deceased, actually." My mouth went dry. "That's a mistake." He paused. "It was certified by the registrar's office. Dated 2 weeks ago." I hung up before my voice could crack. The DMV confirmed it an hour later. The woman behind the glass screen blinked at her monitor, frowned, and said, "You're flagged as legally deceased. Death certificate filed under your full name, Serafina Lisette Wynne." Her tone was flat, but her eyes flicked up to me with pity. "You'll need to file a correction. That process can take months." I didn't answer. I walked out into the cold, dazed, as if someone had peeled the edges of the world back and revealed that everything I thought was solid could vanish. Across the street, a woman stood still, half-shadowed beneath a row of bare-limbed trees. Her sunglasses were too large for the gray sky. She wore a pale blue silk scarf looped once around her neck, the same scarf my mother claimed the dry cleaners had lost 3 years ago. She didn't smile. She didn't look away. She was watching. I stepped back into the flow of foot traffic and moved without thinking, not fast, but deliberate. When I turned the corner, she was gone. Back at my apartment, I pulled open the drawer where I kept old letters and laid them out like breadcrumbs. I wasn't just disinherited. I was being erased carefully, quietly, and thoroughly, and someone was watching to make sure it stuck. I opened my laptop, pulled the USB from its case, and stared at the folder Grandpa had labeled Inheritance. Somewhere inside was the next step. The brass key had been sitting in my nightstand for years, wrapped in the same worn handkerchief Grandpa gave it to me in on my 18th birthday. I never asked what it opened. He just said, "You'll need this someday when you're ready to claim yourself." That day had come. Langford Private Vaults sat behind an unmarked door near the edge of the historic district, tucked between a boutique wine shop and a faded bookstore. The woman at the front desk took one look at the key, checked her records, and led me down a quiet corridor without asking any questions. The air grew colder the farther we walked until we reached a narrow room lined with metal drawers. "Box 17, she said, unlocking the drawer and sliding it forward. I nodded and waited until the door closed behind her before reaching inside. A black fireproof folder lay there, its surface smooth and cold. I opened it slowly. The first page was a certified cashier's check, real this time, with the bank seal embedded into the paper. $38 million addressed to me. The next set of documents was heavier notarized land deeds transferring full ownership of the family estate's underlying property. Then, another stock certificates for Wynne Carroll Holdings, every voting share, every executive authority. My name inked across each, and at the bottom a flash drive in a velvet pouch. Back in my apartment, I slid it into my laptop and clicked the single file inside. Grandpa's face filled the screen. He looked older than I remembered, sitting in the sunroom with light pouring over his shoulder. "If you're seeing this, Sarah, then they did what I feared they would. They tried to erase you." He spoke slowly but clearly, every word deliberate. "You were always the quiet one. The one who saw everything, felt too much, asked for nothing. That's why they feared you. That's why I trusted you." He leaned forward slightly, eyes tired but sharp. "This isn't just money. It's memory. It's legacy. And if they tried to burn yours down, this is how you come back." The screen faded to black, and I knew exactly where I needed to go next. I found the envelope taped just beneath the peephole on my front door, plain white, no stamp, no handwriting, except a single line in neat block letters. They didn't burn the real check. "Look in box array at Langford Security." There was no signature, no hint of who had left it. Just silence on the other side of the door. I sat at the table for a long time staring at it, then reached for my laptop. Langford had more than one vault location. Box Array wasn't listed publicly, but I recognized the name. Grandpa once joked it was where they hide the real bones. I logged into the estate email that had been created during the trust transfer and found a message I hadn't noticed before. The subject line was blank. The body just a sentence. They're not after the money, they're after the signature. Attached was a single document, an unsigned asset transfer form. At the top, Wynn Carroll Holdings. Below it, a second form, this one signed. My name was there, but the signature wasn't mine. They'd forged it. They were selling the company. I opened the company's internal dashboard and access Grandpa had set up months before. And there it was, transactions proposals, asset reassignment. Every move approved under my name, while my legal status remained deceased. I was more than disinherited. I was a loophole, a convenient silence. They thought they'd taken everything, but they left a trail sloppy bold and rooted in arrogance, the kind that believed no one like me would ever come back. I reached for Grandpa's flash drive again and opened a folder labeled Charleston Land Archives. My name was listed under every plot, and I knew where I was going next. The name on the lease was W.M. Trillium, a name Grandpa once used for fishing licenses and antique record auctions. A joke he said Wynn Merrick like the flower that keeps growing where it's not supposed to. I remembered that on the drive out past the city limits through rusted farmland and forgotten lots until I pulled up to a squat row of storage units and found number 19B. The lock clicked open with a small brass key from the velvet pouch. The air inside was stale but not untouched. A single metal shelf lined the far wall, and in the center, like it had been placed there for me to find, was a black, fireproof briefcase. Inside a manila folder with my original birth certificate, not the updated one with my stepfather's surname. This one held only mine, Serafina Lisette Wynn. No hyphen, no edits. Next were the letters. 12 in total, each in Grandpa's unmistakable script. Most were dated within weeks of key family events, my college graduation, my parents' vow renewal, the Christmas I spent alone. He'd written them but never mailed them. One line repeated often. They won't erase you, not while I'm still standing. Beneath the letters was a notarized will, dated after the supposed date of my death. His signature was strong, deliberate. In it, I was named sole beneficiary. Not Callia, not Everett or Lisette, me. But what stilled my breath was the deed. Wynn Estate, Charleston, SC. Ownership, Serafina Lisette Wynn. My fingers brushed over the embossed seal. I hadn't just inherited a house. I'd inherited the foundation, the ground under their power. And they didn't know. I sat down on a cracked plastic chair near the door, clutching the folder to my chest, feeling the shape of my name for the first time in years. I wasn't a ghost, and they had no idea I was already walking back through the door they thought they'd slammed shut. Sylvia Orton didn't speak much when I handed her the briefcase. She just opened it, scanned the documents with sharp eyes, and said, "We'll move fast." There was no awe in her tone, just certainty like she'd seen enough family betrayals to know when the paper trail held fire. We filed the challenge within 48 hours. The hearing was set for Monday. The courthouse smelled like waxed floors and old decisions. I wore black. Not for mourning, but because armor doesn't always clang. My parents arrived together flanked by a young lawyer in a too-tight suit and too loose smirk. Callia trailed behind them, lips glossed, phone in hand. They didn't look at me. Judge Kinley presided, known for clipped sentences and a low tolerance for theatrics. When our case was called, he nodded toward Sylvia. She stood calm and deliberate. "We are here to contest the execution of the estate of Merrick Wynn," she said, "on grounds of forgery, coercion, and identity suppression." The opposing counsel rolled his eyes. "Your Honor, my clients are the documented beneficiaries. Any attempts to revise the will posthumously are not only unfounded, they're emotional." Sylvia tapped her tablet. "Your Honor, the deceased anticipated this." With a single click, the lights dimmed and the screen behind the bench lit up. Grandpa's face appeared. "If they're watching this," he said, "it means they tried to bury her." His voice was steady even. Let the record show I changed the will knowingly, under no pressure. I made Serafina sole heir because she earned it, because she endured. The courtroom went still. Callia's mouth opened, then closed. My mother paled. My father shifted like he was about to interrupt, but Judge Kinley raised a hand. Enough. He turned to them, his voice cold. You didn't just try to manipulate this court. You tried to erase a person. Then he looked at me. This court recognizes Serafina Wynne as the sole legal heir to Merrick Wynne's estate. The respondent's assets are to be frozen pending further investigation. I exhaled not from relief, but release. The damage was done. Now came the reckoning. Callia texted twice before I answered. The first message was short, please. The second was longer, clumsier. Can we just talk, just us? Like before, I agreed to meet her at a cafe near the courthouse. Neutral ground, no history attached. She was already there when I arrived, stirring a coffee she hadn't touched. Her smile trembled when she saw me. I didn't know, she said before I could sit. About the death certificate. About the will. They told me it was a routine form. I just signed where Dad told me to. I didn't speak. I set my phone on the table screen, dark, but recording. I swear, Sarah, I didn't mean for any of this. I didn't know they'd go that far. Her voice cracked. I thought we were just trying to protect what was ours. What was yours, I repeated. She flinched. I mean, I didn't think you'd fight. You always just left. That part was true, but I wasn't the girl who left anymore. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was scared. I thought if I didn't go along, they'd cut me out too. I watched her wipe a tear with the sleeve of her expensive coat. It wasn't that I didn't believe she felt regret. I just didn't care if she did. No threats, no rage, just silence. I stood, tucked the phone back into my pocket, and stepped away without looking back. Her voice followed me halfway across the cafe, but I didn't stop. Outside, the air smelled like distant rain. I pulled my coat tighter and walked not toward the past, not even toward revenge, just forward. And waiting in my inbox was the final document Grandpa had left me marked in bold transfer of deed, effective upon confirmation. The courthouse steps were quieter than I expected. No cameras, no confrontation, just the sound of my boots tapping steady against old concrete as I made my way down. In my hand was the deed, my name etched in bold print beneath the seal of the county and the estate. No more doubt. No more pretending. I paused just before the last step and turned back facing the building I'd fought so long to be heard in. I held the deed in front of me and took a single photo. No smile, just stillness. The caption I typed was simple. They tried to burn the legacy. I inherited the foundation. Then I shut my phone off and slipped it into my bag. No victory dance, no announcement, no need. I walked 5 blocks in silence to the small brick studio I'd closed on 2 days earlier, a modest space with tall windows and scuffed floors tucked between a florist and a forgotten laundromat. It wasn't much yet, but it was mine. I unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and reached for the envelope Grandpa had left in the vault, the one marked "Start Here." Inside were 3 things: a hand-drawn sketch of the studio's blueprint, a folded business license application already half completed in his handwriting, and a letter with 4 words underlined, "Make something they can't erase." I sat cross-legged on the dusty floor, the weight of everything I'd lost and reclaimed settling around me like dust after a storm. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice. It was the beginning, and I was ready to build,